Hello and good day. We are going to talk about the various steps or the processes in project risk management. Now, in a small departure from what I've been doing so far, I'll be taking this topic up over a few sessions or over a few short videos where I cover one topic in every session. So today I just want to do a small introduction to risk management. Now, what is a risk? This is what we should know first. Now, a risk is an event or a situation in a project which, if and when it occurs, can cause a positive or a negative effect. Now, mind you, risk can also be positive, so that we'll see as we go along. So now, risk management is so vital. That's why I'm spreading this out over a few sessions. It's important to know the various aspects and the processes of risk management. Now that you know what a risk is, it's nothing but an event which could derail your project, right? Now that is so important because if you can handle that, or if you can, manage that kind of an event or a situation, then you're well on the way to, sort of going towards success in the project, right? That's the significance. That's the importance of risk management. So you call it risk, you call it, some kind of difficult situation or whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, these keep happening all the time in the projects. Now, you must be getting a gist of what I'm trying to say. So, because, if you can handle these kind of, threatening situations in a project, then you are in control. Now, they say that when you do risk management, the project manager is in control of the project. And when you don't do risk management, the project is in control of the project manager, right? So this is the difference. So I thought I will just give an introduction today, and that's what I've done. And so we will go into the first process of risk management. So we go into the first process, but before that, I just want to remind you that a risk is nothing but an event or a situation in a project which has consequences on the project. And so you want to control that. So if you can control those situations, probably you're on your way to a project success. So this is the whole idea of risk management. Now, the first process in risk management is the risk management plan. Here we are trying to create a plan by which you define how you're going to manage and carry out the risk management effort. Now, the first thing in this is that you, while creating this plan, you involve all stakeholders and maybe a subject matter expert or two to make sure that the process is done properly. Now, the second step is to have a strategy. Now, what will be the level of your risk management effort? Now, if it's a small project, you don't have to go for a quantitative analysis, which we will look at as we go along. A qualitative analysis should suffice. The other point which can come up in the plan is about being risk averse and risk tolerant. It's important to identify stakeholders who are risk averse, which means they are not willing to accept risks, or stakeholders who are risk tolerant, which means you are willing to go for a high level of risk. You are willing to accept a high level of risk. From this, we also have to define the probability and impact matrix. Now, for a person who's risk averse, for example, probability of 7 on the matrix may be very high, but for a risk tolerant person, 7 may not be that high a figure. He or she is willing to accept a higher level of risk. So these are some of the things, but to go into all the aspects of the plan, we need to go into that detailed planning process. So this is a sort of we are trying to cover all the processes in risk management as much as possible, so that we can complete this exercise in a short period of time, and maybe generate interest in your mind, so that you could take the next step. So we will now look at further processes as we go along. Identifying risks. Now, this is a very important process, because this is where we identify all the possible events that could come up in the project, which can be positive or negative. Now, I want to touch upon the positive part. Now, the positive risk is one which, it's also called opportunities, which can benefit the project. Quick example could be that you have a possibility of ordering equipment for the project, and if you order in bulk, the supplier is willing to give you a discount. Now, that's an example of an opportunity where you take the advantage of there being the possibility of buying at a reduced rate if you order multiple quantities, so quantities. So that's the example of an opportunity. Now, what do we do here? I try to identify, sitting together as a group, all the stakeholders, identify all the possible situations, both positive and negative, that could come up in the project. From where? That's the question. This can be from historical records of previous projects, from various categories like schedule, cost, scope, quality, communications, where all, there could be areas where you could think of events sort of popping up. There could also be events which could come up from external factors, internal factors within the organization. So all these are put together and identified, maybe to make a list of about 200 to 300 risks for a large project. Now, these are all entered in the first column of the risk register, which is a concept I'm now bringing up, under risk description. That's the first column in the risk register. And at the same time, writing out the potential strategy to handle that risk. It may be eliminate, or it may be transfer, or it may be exploit or enhance for positive risks. It may be accepted category. So all these are written down immediately and later may be reviewed at the time of the analysis. So this risk identification process is very important, because if you miss out some major risks, they could prop up as a crisis later on. So it's so important to do this as perfectly as possible. Now, the next process in the risk management effort is qualitative risk analysis. Now, you have a list of identified risks already in the risk register. Now, assuming we are dealing with big projects, that could be a list of probably about 200 risks. Now, can all these go for response planning? No, it doesn't make sense, because it's a waste of time and effort and probably money also. So what do? We create a list of prioritized risks. Now, how do we do that? We, give them a high, medium or low rating, or on a scale of 1:10, we give them a rating. Now, once that is done, then these risks will go for additional analysis in the form of quantitative analysis, or they may go directly for risk response planning. In short, this is what we do in qualitative risk analysis. So let's not get bogged down by the name, the qualitative risk analysis kind of, a nomenclature. It's simply this. This is what we are going to do. So once we do that, then we could also have a list of prioritized risks, which could give priorities to risks from the same from work packages, risks from maybe other categories, which later on in response planning you can use to eliminate, to find out the root cause and eliminate those entire risks. So that way we save time again. So this is the whole idea of qualitative risk analysis. So we will go into quantitative analysis in the next process. We now look at the next process in risk management, which is quantitative risk analysis. Now, in the last process, which is qualitative risk analysis, we came out with a short list of prioritized risks. This was the output of that process. Now, in that, highly ranked risks may require quantitative analysis. Now, what is quantitative analysis? Quantitative analysis is about numbers. So instead of saying a risk has an impact of, it has a high impact or a medium or a low impact, we say the risk has an impact of so many rupees, and the probability is given as percentage, say 20% or 50%. So this risk has a probability of 50%, and the impact if it occurs is about say so many thousands of rupees. So this is what we do in quantitative risk analysis. The next step is to multiply the probability and impact to arrive at expected monetary value or the expected time value, depending on whether it's time or cost. Now, this is the the indicator of the contingency or the reserve that is required for that particular risk. So it's defined as probability times the impact. Now, the remaining risks in the short list of prioritized risks, which we talked about at the beginning, will go directly for response planning. Now, this is all that we do essentially in quantitative risk analysis. I hope that's clear to you. Now, we are going slowly towards a place where we can now look at how we can respond to these risks so that the project can go smoothly. Thank you. We'll look at the next process. Risk response planning. Now, from qualitative analysis as well as from quantitative analysis, we spoke of some risks going directly to risk response planning. Now, in risk response planning, the first thing is about strategies. What are the strategies available to help you to plan the risk responses? Now, under threats are the negative risks we talked about, and under them there are eliminate, which is to remove that risk, mitigate, which is to bring down the probability and impact of that risk if it occurs, and transfer, that is transfer that risk to another third party, which could be in the form of an insurance, or it could be a form of a contract, a subcontract or a contract. Now, under opportunities, which are positive risks, the strategies are exploit, try to make the risks happen. Just the opposite of eliminate. Enhance, which is the opposite of mitigate, that is, increase the probability and impact of that risk so that it can happen because it's going to benefit you. And finally, share. Let's create a joint venture with a third party to handle that risk. So these are the options available under threats and opportunities. Now, under both of them, there is a common strategy called accept. Now, under accept, we have passive acceptance, which says that we'll just let the risk happen. If it happens, we'll handle it. And there is active acceptance, where you create, contingency reserves and contingency plans. Right? Now, these are the various strategies available. Now, after going through this planning, response planning process, there will be still some risks left out, which are called residual risks. Now, these residual risks, you have to plan contingency reserves and contingency plans, as we did for the accepted risks, for these residual risks. Now, this is more or less the total process of risk response planning. Now, what happens here is that when you have created contingency reserves, you have to go and iterate the project management plan or the project plan and incorporate these contingencies into the time and the cost. So now you can see how the risk management process helps in the overall planning of the project, because now you have incorporated the risk contingencies into the schedule and the cost. So the real schedule and cost are those which have these risk contingencies in them, added to them. So these could be minus for opportunities and plus for threats, because threats add to cost and time, opportunities reduce cost and time. So this is how risk management helps you to make sure that your project stays on course. Of course, you can't identify and plan for 100% risk, but most of the risks you can identify and plan for. We've been talking about the risk register in many of the videos, and it's the risk register where most of the functions in risk management are recorded and noted down for continuous updation and tracking. So what is it? It's about it's a series of columns in a Excel sheet or any sheet or software if you have. That's not important. The important thing is about maintaining it. And one of the first important columns in the risk register is risk description, where you write down the 200 or 300 risks we have been mentioning for large projects. Now, the next one is to qualitatively analyze these risks. Now, that means giving them a high, medium, or low rating in probability and a high, medium, or low rating in terms of impact. Now, this can be also in a scale of 1:10 for both probability and impact. Now, once this is done, then you arrive at a short list of prioritized risks. Now, mind you, all the risks need not be analyzed qualitatively because some of them may not be worth the time and effort spent in doing the analysis. So with this, we next go to quantitative analysis, which is only for those high value risks in the which come through the qualitative analysis. And here it's all about numbers. We have probability in terms of percentage, impact in terms of money or time, and probability times impact equals the expected value, whether it's money or time. And this is the contingency reserve. Now, this is only for certain risks which come out of the qualitative analysis. Now, these two together, the two lists together, prioritized list and qualitative and quantitative analysis, will now go for risk response planning. Now, here is where the real action comes, because here we apply strategies to the risks in these two prioritized short lists, and these strategies are eliminate for threats and exploit for opportunities, then accept actively for those risks which cannot be eliminated or mitigated or any other process possible in that in those strategies. And this goes straight for contingency reserve and response planning. Next is mitigate or enhance. This is for threats and opportunities respectively, where we try to reduce the probability or impact, or try to increase the probability or impact in the case of opportunities. Now, after going through these processes, there may still be risks which cannot be or have not been analyzed or cannot be analyzed at present moment. These are called residual risks. So these are entered in the residual risks because later on, or even at some stage in the immediate stage, you may have to again look at these risks. So this is the next step. And then next we go into creating the contingency reserves and the contingency plans. Now, these are similar to what we did in the quantitative analysis, and these give you the reserves in terms of cost and time for those high value risks and those actively accepted risks. And then we go into the watch list and passively accepted risks, which are risks which we may not act on now. Similarly, the watch list is just kept in watch to see if they are becoming critical. And last but not least, we have risk triggers, which are the early warning signs which are noted down for all the important risks. Now, this is broadly what we do with the risk register and is used throughout the life of the project for updating and tracking all the risks. The next process in the risk management effort is implement risk responses. Now, we saw how we prepared, the plans, the contingency plans and the contingency reserves in the previous process in risk response planning. Now, here is where we implement them as and when the risk occurs. Now, how do we know that the risk is going to occur? There's a concept called triggers, risk triggers. Now, these are early warning signs, and these have to be identified by the project team for the important risks. Now, when they happen, you know the risk is going to happen. Now, the other concept is about risk owners. Now, the project manager appoints certain people as risk owners, and these are the people who prepare the risk response plans and implement them if and when they occur. Now, these are two important concepts. Now, if the previous process of risk response planning has been gone through properly, then this is a smooth affair, and risk response implementation is at the heart of the risk management effort. Now, when the risk happens, after the trigger, then the risk owner implements the response plan with pre-arranged resources. And this is what goes on. The risk register is updated all the time, and the process goes on. So this is about response implementation. The last process in the risk management area, which is monitor risks. Now, just as we do in the case of project monitoring and controlling, here too we take proactive action based on information available on the risk status as the project progresses. Now, some important actions that we have to take are: number one, look out for risk triggers and be ready to implement the response plan as and when the risk occurs. Number two, identify new risks and close out old risks as new information becomes available. Number three, prepare new response plans as more and more information becomes available on the project as it progresses. Fourth one is look out for the watch list of non-critical risks which was created earlier. Now, some of the risks in that watch list might have become critical, so prepare response plans and be ready. And last but not least, if your project is consistently getting delayed or going into cost overruns, then maybe you need to do the whole risk management effort once again, because maybe you missed some major risks during that initial phase. Now, this is not exhaustive by any means, but this is something you can focus on and help the project maintain its risk management progress and status as you go along. Thank you.